Alright, let's just dive straight into it, shall we? The topic on the table is the notion of Lamar Jackson wearing midnight green. Specifically, the hypothetical of Lamar Jackson becoming a member of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I don't typically wade into these kinds of speculative waters or entertain these sorts of far-fetched hypotheticals on a regular basis. However, when a particular take gains enough traction in the wider football ecosystem, or when it's provocative enough to spark genuine debate, I find it warrants a closer look. I think there's inherent value in hashing out these concepts. As I'm always emphasizing, my entire approach is predicated on fostering dialogue and encouraging robust discussions. That's the core of what we do here. But let me be perfectly clear about one thing: there is a significant difference between having a meaningful, substantive conversation and simply chasing after whimsical, baseless rumors that have no connection to reality. That's precisely why I'm not particularly enamored with the constant cycle of free agency speculation and draft day prognostications. The landscape is just too murky. It's nearly impossible to decipher what's legitimate intel and what's merely smoke and mirrors designed to generate clicks. For instance, I have zero interest in engaging with a narrative that suggests the Eagles are orchestrating a blockbuster trade up to the number 1 overall pick to draft some obscure quarterback prospect. To me, that's just not compelling. It's an empty conversation that doesn't lead anywhere productive or worth our collective time. However, as I've found over the course of producing this content, a significant part of my role is about sharing my own unique perspectives, offering detailed analysis, and reacting to the viewpoints of others. It's a continuous cycle of presenting a take, then examining it from a meta-perspective, essentially, having a conversation about the conversation itself. One thing that genuinely disappoints me from time to time is when viewers reduce my work to a simplistic caricature. There's a perception out there that all I do is passively react to other people's clips or sound bites, and it's like, no, that's a massive oversimplification. There are layers upon layers at play here. Sure, there might be instances where that's the surface-level action, but the vast majority of the time, it's a complex interplay of numerous factors. I see part of my job as navigating the discourse itself, steering it, questioning it, and introducing compelling, thought-provoking elements into the discussion, especially during those stretches of the year when the NFL news cycle slows to a crawl. We're in June, right? The doldrums of the off-season. That's why I consistently give credit to the major debate shows like The Herd or First Things First. Even when they roll out talking points that I find questionable, outlandish, or a complete waste of airtime, I still appreciate their existence. Why? Because frankly, there's precious little else to dissect. Their willingness to generate any kind of conversation, no matter how random or far-fetched, is a service to the football-starved fan. It's a well-oiled machine with writers, producers, and showrunners all brainstorming, what can we do today? What fresh angle can we explore? What will get the fans engaged? At its core, it's entertainment. And I will always respect and be grateful for entertainment, because that's what I strive to deliver as well. And so, when I see a proposal like the one we're discussing today, I understand its purpose. Now, I realize that was a somewhat lengthy tangent for an introduction, but I genuinely find these discussions interesting, specifically because of what I see bubbling up in the comment sections. My primary curiosity lies in seeing how this community, the people who consistently watch and engage with this channel, will react. The core premise, as floated by a prominent talking head, was essentially this: call me crazy, but if the Eagles are still looking to upgrade at quarterback after this season, I could see Howie Roseman inserting himself into the Lamar Jackson situation in a big deal. What's absolutely riveting to me is the stark divide in public opinion. It's a complete schism. I would confidently say that the masses, the overwhelming majority of football fans, believe unequivocally that Lamar Jackson is a superior quarterback to Jalen Hurts. That's the prevailing sentiment. It's the verdict of the court of public opinion. Now, naturally, you have your devoted Jalen Hurts fans, and you also have the broader, monolithic Eagles fanbase. While there's overlap, they're distinct entities. The dynamic isn't quite the same as the one you see with Patrick Mahomes and Chiefs fans, or Lamar and Ravens fans. Hurts certainly has his own dedicated following, but it's a different beast. One thing I've observed over the years, something I discuss frequently, is that with the Eagles, the dominant voice is always Eagles fans first, and Jalen Hurts fans second. In contrast, for other superstars, the individual player's fanbase often takes center stage. The most vocal contingents right now, in my experience from reading comments and making videos, are the Lamar fans, the Mahomes fans, the Baker Mayfield fans. It's very distinct. So, in this debate, the arguments you hear constantly are, I'm taking the Super Bowl winner. I'm taking the guy who has proven he can perform on the grandest stage. The biggest criticism that has dogged Lamar throughout his career is that he doesn't show up in high-stakes games, the narrative that he regresses in the playoffs, while Jalen Hurts seems to elevate his game. People will argue that Lamar is simply the better quarterback. He's a more refined passer, a more dynamic runner, and an all-around better player. He's seen as an all-time great talent in a way that Jalen Hurts simply isn't. But then the counter-argument comes, but Jalen Hurts has a Super Bowl ring. And the rebuttal to that is, the Ravens have never constructed a team anywhere near the caliber of the Eagles. Then the response to that is, but the Ravens are consistently predicted to win the Super Bowl, they're always positioned to make a run, and they consistently fall short. And then the retort is, well, what about the coaching, the roster depth, the play calling, the injuries? It becomes a fascinating, multi-layered conversation because I believe, with 10,000% conviction, that the Eagles have built superior teams compared to the Baltimore Ravens. There's no question about that. The Eagles are a better run organization. If you think the Eagles are going to be a hardball, stagnant franchise for years, that's just not going to happen. That's not their operational model. And if you think they'd just spin their wheels with a revolving door of coordinators, you're misreading the situation entirely. That's why the Eagles have been able to get over the hump and win multiple Super Bowls, while the Ravens haven't. Essentially, within the same timeframe as Lamar, Mahomes, and Allen, the Eagles have been consistently playing in Super Bowls, 3 appearances, 2 victories. It's a reflection of the entire organization, not just one player or coach. So, the question becomes thought-provoking. The way I start to dissect this is by asking, if Lamar Jackson was the quarterback for the Eagles in 2022, 2023, 2024, or 2025, what happens? Do they still win the Super Bowl? I played this game with Josh Allen, with Patrick Mahomes, with all the top-tier signal callers. It's a common thread in discussions about the Eagles, the claim that you could plug in any other top quarterback and get similar, if not better, results. I've always maintained that's a flawed argument. It's similar to the take people attribute to me about the Chiefs, that I've said other quarterbacks would have won with Kansas City. And I believe that's true. I believe Josh Allen would have won Super Bowls with the Chiefs. I have no doubt about that. I believe Jalen Hurts would have won with the Chiefs. With the Eagles, I'm not convinced that Hurts is the only quarterback who could win a Super Bowl. However, the nuance is critical. I don't believe anything could have overcome the debacle of 2023 or the struggles of 2025. Could a different QB have made them more competitive, more resilient? Absolutely. But when I look at the tape of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and Patrick Mahomes, I can't say with full confidence that they would have clearly gotten that Eagles team to the Super Bowl. Why? Because when their own teams have encountered problems, poor coaching, offensive line issues, defensive collapses, I haven't seen them magically overcome those obstacles. The Bills fired their offensive coordinator mid-season. Lamar has cycled through multiple coordinators. Mahomes has had Andy Reid his entire career, and they're currently panicking about the loss of Matt Nagy and the new offensive structure. So why would I believe they could transcend any issue the Eagles faced? I don't buy that at all. That's where the conversation gets even more intricate. Do I think Lamar Jackson could have won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles specifically in 2022 or 2024? Yeah, it's definitely possible, unless he truly lacks the ability to elevate. Am I confident he would have been great in the Super Bowl itself? No, I'm not. Am I willing to say he would have been better than Jalen Hurts in that game? In 2022, Jalen Hurts had one of the greatest Super Bowl performances of all time. To simply assume Lamar would have done more is just illogical. If the Eagles were close to winning and Hurts played brilliantly, which he did, he was spectacular, you can't just hand-wave that away. The counter-argument is always about the turnovers, but show me a quarterback, Lamar, Josh, Mahomes, who doesn't turn the ball over. It doesn't happen. Patrick Mahomes threw one of the ugliest interceptions I've ever seen in his last Super Bowl win. So, that line of critique is a complete non-starter. You can't just assert Lamar would have been better because Jalen Hurts played out of his mind in that game. He was as brilliant as you could ever ask for. I'm not so sure that Josh Allen or Lamar would have matched that. We've seen Mahomes look uncomfortable in Super Bowls. Nick Wright has even admitted that Mahomes has yet to play a complete Super Bowl from start to finish. Josh Allen looked shaky in the first couple of drives of the AFC Championship game against the Chiefs. Lamar has had his own struggles. Now, again, that doesn't mean those quarterbacks didn't play well enough to win. The nuance is that this is a multi-layered conversation. But with Lamar, if you insert him into the Eagles, I do think you'd get a better version of him because the Eagles are a more stable team. But does that automatically guarantee a Super Bowl? I'm not convinced. This inevitably circles back to the whole choking narrative. And this is something I've realized early on in making videos. People fundamentally misuse the word choking. Losing is not choking. Choking is when you can't handle the pressure of the moment. It's not about missing a shot. You're going to miss shots, you're not perfect. Choking is when you fundamentally collapse under the weight of the moment. Think of it like basketball at the free throw line. If you make this basket, you win the championship. If you're shaking, panicking, and you miss the shot, that's choking. But if you go through your routine, shoot it, and it rims out, that's just missing a shot. There's a fundamental difference. Yet, every time someone loses, people scream choked. So, if you believe Jalen Hurts has a genuine superpower in the playoffs, a unique composure, that's why I showed the Lamar video in my Jalen video. Lamar slamming his helmet on the sideline during the AFC Championship game is concerning. That's someone who's overwhelmed by emotion. Meanwhile, Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl, he turns the ball over and there's zero visible reaction. He throws a dagger and it's like nothing happened. That's genuinely impressive and it does matter. I do think Dak Prescott has choked in playoff games. He doesn't just lose, he actively gets worse. He gets outplayed. There are concrete moments we can point to where he was objectively bad. And that's where I take issue with the 49ers game narrative. Jalen Hurts made massive plays, huge throws, and his team didn't help him out. He was going to win that game with 2 minutes left, until his offensive lineman gave up on a play, he got tackled from behind, and he was robbed of the opportunity to put them in field goal range or the red zone. He was right there. He made incredible throws to A.J. Brown that were simply not executed by the rest of the offense, but everyone focuses on the box score. Jalen Hurts played really, really well in that game. Was he transcendent? No. Was he able to overcome every other issue? No. But he played good enough to win. Even Greg Jennings, who is not a Jalen Hurts apologist, admitted that. When everyone was pointing fingers, Jennings called out A.J. Brown and company, saying, "Your quarterback played well. He wasn't the reason you lost." That's a significant statement. So, it proves to be a really interesting trait with Jalen Hurts. It makes you wonder, even if these other quarterbacks are theoretically better, do they act to elevate in the most meaningful moments? Do they truly elevate? I don't know if Lamar doesn't turn the ball over against the Chiefs in 2024, or if Josh Allen does. I don't know. If Jalen Hurts doesn't throw an absolute dime to A.J. Brown on 4th down against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, now the Chiefs get the ball at the 48-yard line, down 7. That changes everything. It's not hard to imagine they at least kick a field goal. And there are many moments like that against the Commanders, against the Chiefs, against the Packers. There's no guarantee, zero. It's just not straightforward. And that's why the conversation is so fascinating to me. Everyone tries to make it a binary choice, this QB is better, full stop. But it's actually a lot more complicated. Outside of Jalen Hurts fans, everyone is picking Lamar Jackson. But even the people who aren't biased or just looking to hate can acknowledge that we have seen greatness from Jalen Hurts in the biggest moments. And we are hoping to see better moments from those other quarterbacks. I've defended Josh Allen in that 4-turnover game because he was doing spectacular things to keep his team in it. I maintain they wouldn't have even been in that position without him. But the reality is we've seen Lamar struggle. We've seen these things unfold. And we haven't fully seen that with Jalen, or if we have, it's been balanced out by other greatness. But because of the regular season perception, it's muddled. You can then say, well, what about coaching? What about the system? I've said this a million times, I think Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen are arguably the most resilient quarterbacks in the NFL. You can put them on a bad team and they'll still elevate it. I don't think Jalen Hurts can do that to the same extent, nor Jared Goff, nor Joe Burrow. We saw Patrick Mahomes couldn't get to the playoffs when his offensive line and receivers were decimated. It just didn't happen. So that's the reality. Because of the physicality, speed, and strength, Lamar and Josh have an edge over others. But with that said, I also think what Jalen Hurts did this past season was an incredible mark of resiliency. Dealing with O-line issues, an inconsistent run game, predictable play calling, and drama, I thought that was really great and impressive to me. So, I can go in circles with this. Where do you go? Someone in the comment section said, if the Eagles had a real quarterback, they'd be in the middle of a dynasty. I've already debunked that. What Super Bowl are you magically winning here? Even with the greatest quarterback, you'd still have just won the one Super Bowl in 2024. There's no other extra Super Bowl the Eagles magically win. If Hurts didn't play great in 2022, then maybe you add that to the list, but that's clearly not what happened. The Eagles would still be exactly where they are. So, the question remains, what are you moving forward into? If you make a move like this, you're looking at a 3-year window. Who gives you a better chance to win another Super Bowl in that span? Do you go with the guy you've seen get it done with a great roster, or do you go with the guy who is unquestionably elite but hasn't done it in the biggest moments, hoping a better team changes that? I find this whole conversation genuinely interesting. I don't think anything is off limits. I find it entertaining, which is why I wanted to throw it into the mix and see what the comment section looks like. Obviously, Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson are hot topics, especially on this channel. I would say they spark arguably the most intense comment sections, beyond the generic Mahomes debates. With these two, you get so many other people in the conversations, there's no shortage of opinions, and it's fan bases that are just ready to get after it, for different reasons than the Mahomes, Allen, or Burrow debates. I'm really interested to see what the comment section looks like for this one. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. So please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. Please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.